What's the most outrageous thing you've ever made anyone believe? We once convinced my friend that dolphins killed more people than sharks did. After she found out we were lying, she vowed to never believe what we said again. Until about 10 minutes later when we got her believing that the plural of fish was fish. We even pointed to a random page in a dictionary as proof, knowing that she wouldn't actually read where we were pointing. This, and stuff like it, is a surprisingly effective way to fool way too many people. In high school during theater class there was a girl complaining she had a giant bruise on her leg and wanted to get rid of it as fast as possible. I told her that if her boyfriend came on it would heal faster. There were about 4 or 5 people sitting around us and they all got the joke as I was clearly being sarcastic. It was a Friday so went home, weekend stuff etc. Got back to that class on Monday and had completely forgot about the whole bruise thing. She walks up to me pee off and says that she had her boyfriend finish on her leg several times over the weekend and the bruise was still there. It was the first time in my life where I had been truly speechless. She was completely oblivious to the fact that I was joking. Her boyfriend owes you a beer. By timing it correctly, I taught my children that they had to say open please whenever they walked up to an automatic door. As adults they don't say it anymore, but you can be sure they are thinking it. My dad always made me hold my hands whenever I was in a store, especially if it was a store with a lot of breakable items. To this day I still catch myself holding my hands together whenever I enter a store. Not really outrageous, but still my favorite. At work I once used the word scruples in a sentence. Our delightfully blonde administrative assistant asked what the word meant and I informed her it was a small furry woodland creature that became extinct during the Reagan years. It's true. I remember the Reagan years well, and you never saw any scruples. Still feel bad about it, but a couple friends and I convinced one guy he lost his virginity. We were at college, and there was this one guy that always followed us around like a puppy dog. We felt bad for him, so we kept him in our group of friends, even though he was pretty annoying. Dude was also ugly. I'm no Fabio myself, but man, he was seriously ugly. Anyway, his greatest ambition was to lose his virginity in college. So one night freshman year we all went to a party, and he went back to the dorm rip-roaring drunk. We figured he would black out, so we set up the plan. We grabbed a pair of panties from a willing female friend, and dropped them in his room. Then we signed out a fake girl's name with the security desk so it looked like he signed someone in. Then we waited. The next day we kept asking him about that hot goth girl he took to his room the night before. At first he was confused, then accepting, then proud as heck. Eventually he started regaling us with stories on how long he lasted, what positions, etc. On one hand, we felt terrible, but on the other, it was effing hilarious. Actually did wonders for his confidence with the ladies too. Somehow I feel as though you did him a great favor since you were nice enough not to let him in on the joke and it boosted his confidence. I once convinced this girl I went to high school with that people drive on the left side of the road in England because their hearts are on the right side of their bodies, and this provides better protection for their hearts while driving. She didn't find out the truth until 3 years later, in a biology class, when she raised her hand and contradicted the teacher who had said that people's hearts are always on the left side of their bodies. Silly teacher forgot about dextrocardia and situs inversus. I'm a guy, and I have curly brown hair, green eyes, pale skin and freckles. My ex-girlfriend is basically complected identically to me, and we could totally be siblings, but we are not related. Just to be clear, one night, we were going out to the bars with my best friend, his girlfriend, and her roommate, Kelly, whom I had met once or twice, but my girlfriend had not met. Before the others got there, I said to my girlfriend, "Hey, let's tell Kelly that we're brother and sister, then after she gets drunk, let's start making out in front of her and make her flip her crap." Well, we did exactly that. It went swimmingly. She had no idea we weren't brother and sister. We even made a few casual references to dad and asked her don't we look alike after the bar closed and we were standing around outside. We started making out, and Kelly flipped her crap. She started jumping up and down and pointing and screaming no, 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 just no. Then we left without a word. It was amazing. I highly recommend this to anyone who thinks they can pull it off. TLDR. I fricked my sister. My boyfriend and I are mistaken as siblings far too often. Maybe we should give this a try. My cousin was in the process of writing Rossum is gullible on a whiteboard. I stopped her and explained there was a silent M in gullible. She wrote it. In high school I convinced a girl that the horn in your car runs on air pressure and that the tires supply the pressure. So every time you honk the horn, you let a little air out of your tires. Somewhat related, in the old VW Bugs the spare tire in the trunk was used as pressure for the sprayer for your windshield washing fluid. So air was let out of your tire every time you used it. I live in Ireland. I once persuaded a couple of American tourists that leprechauns were a real B, actually a species of indigenous apes around the size of a dog, C, endangered, and D, being bred in captivity in a habitat in Dublin Zoo that isn't open to the public. Convinced my ex-wife that every 88 years, through some compounding time involving the 29th of February every 4th year, that we have to add an extra month between February and March called Smark. Lousy smart weather. Pop-Tarts were originally invented by Hitler to feed to the Hitler Youth to keep their spirit and energy levels up. They were called Poppen-Tarten. You got me right at the end. Mein Führer, wir brauchen die Poppen-Tarten. In 11th grade my buddy was writing a paper on the Civil War, and he knew I was into history, so he called me up. I told him that it was fought in 1910 and that the North won due to their innovative use of biplanes. To my utter amazement, he believed it and started writing his paper. I wimped out and called him back to tell him. In hindsight I should have let him turn that sucker in. So I dress in a pirate outfit on occasion. It's a long story as to how or why, but I tended to be doing it less at the beginning of the past year at uni. Regardless, most of the campus knows me as the captain or pirate and they tend to refer to me as such even when out of uniform. I'm wandering on a campus walkway one day and a few people greet me as I walk by. Perfectly normal. However, this freshman I'm walking with seems confused. Hey, Gigapuddy, why are they calling you that? So I outline how, when I was younger, my parents and I were in Somalia with them providing aid to the natives. I was around 14 at the time I think. When my parents decided to leave we all headed to Mogadishu for the airport and then realized my visa or passport had expired. Not a big problem by any means. So my parents fill out the paperwork, hop on the plane, and expect me to join them within a few days. And then bam. Civil War. When fighting got too heavy in Mogadishu, I fled to the border towns to make myself a living and did whatever I had to do. In this case that meant joining up with a few fishermen turned pirates. Never killed anyone. Never actually had to shoot anyone. But we were armed. After a year and a half I was finally able to prove my citizenship and get out. The girl just stands in amazement, having believed the whole thing. I told her I was lying out of mercy. Till Pirate Steve is even weirder than I thought. I can't take credit for this, but my freshman year of college I witnessed some guys on my floor convince this girl that the internet wasn't working because it was leaking into the ocean. I'm sure she believes it to this day. I once convinced a girl that I was cool and interesting. She fell for it and married me. Now, she knows the truth. But she hates paperwork too much to divorce me, so she's trapped. Flawless victory. I don't know if I should laugh or just be depressed about my own future. Either way, upvote. I've posted this before. It wasn't me convincing someone else, it was my brother convincing me. I was a little, gullible kid when Elvis died, and I'd heard people talking about him dying on the toilet. I asked my brother how this could happen. He told me that a woman had been in the room before Elvis and had sprayed a ton of hairspray. Then, apparently, Elvis went in, sat down on the toilet, lit a cigarette and blew through the wall. I once told my mom and my brother that something that Abraham Lincoln and Elvis have in common is that they both died on the toilet. It took them a few beats before they realized how dumb that was. I'm American and I was dating an English girl who taught me that periods are called full stops in England. So I convinced her that question marks are called points of intrigue in the United States. Kept it up for 4 months until she brought it up to another American. I wish this was true. I am very gullible and was convinced by a friend that Newport cigarettes are banned in prison because the fiberglass in the ashes can be compressed and made into razor blades. Not joking. Believed it from the age 20 to 22. Dude, that one is true. I told my then 4-year-old sister that in order to grow hair on your head, the doctors have to spread peanut butter on your head when you are born. Our dad is bald on top, so I told her that they got to the bottom of the jar with him. She believed me for a good 6 months before I came clean. My mum told me that when the ice cream truck rings its bells, plays a song, it means it's out of ice cream. I can't wait till I do it to my kids. My wife's youngest sister was brought up to believe it was the music truck. Oh look, the music truck. How nice. My uncle told a girl at his high school that stop signs are optional if they're outlined in white. In my area, all stop signs are outlined in white. Stoptional. Once, at summer camp, some buddies and I convinced a fellow cabinmate that the town where he was born and raised, McLeod, TX, was in fact not in Texas, but in Louisiana. The town is right on the border and it was pretty easy to convince him. He left camp thinking he was going back home to Louisiana and was really excited to tell all of his friends and family about his newfound knowledge. I spent a year teaching English in China. When I got back, I explained to a friend that, because meat was so scarce, it was common practice in rural China to eat children who had died of natural causes, like accidents. They only ate children because they were tender, whereas adults were stringy and chewy. I convinced her that I tried it, and that it wasn't too bad. It's only a modest proposal. Once, I convinced a friend, who wanted to move to Australia, that everyone there had to wear chastity belts until they were 20. She was like, oh, that's not so bad. I'll be 20 soon enough, so I went on to tell her that that was 20 in Australian years, not North American years. Their years were longer, because they were on the bottom of the earth. She accepted this right off. Also told her that kangaroos lay eggs, and keep them in their pouches. She moved a few months after that, and I didn't get to tell her I was bullshitting until about a year later. She'd believed it up until then. I convinced around 30 people in a dorm when I was in college that I was actually a Russian exchange student. Almost got laid because of it. Almost is only positive if you're talking about being a billionaire or death. I convinced my younger brother, several of his friends, and several of my friends that chickens were plants. Just fast plants. Convinced my girlfriend's mom that if a dog bites someone, animal control has to kill it because it gets the hunger for human flesh and will turn into a ruthless killing machine. Where I grew up, that's true. My ex-boyfriend and I were living together, and one day I brought home a kitten. As time passed, and Panzer turned into an adolescent cat, my boyfriend lamented the fact that he couldn't stay a kitten forever. I then told him about the kitten replacement program. We could send Pan in, and for a small fee, they would ship us a new kitten. He actually believed this, which I attribute to him having a very heavy post-grad course load at the time. He was aghast that I was all gung-ho about this. I even made up fake cat return paperwork at my office and laid it on the kitchen table for him to find. After a few days, I finally broke it to him that there was no such program, and the relief that washed over his face was visible. God, I couldn't stop laughing. People always ask me what the rules of Mormonism are. I've gotten people to think that we can't have mustard, drive Toyota cars, go to Disney World, or visit France because they are all creations of Satan. Just tell them the real things that Mormons believe. It is way more ridiculous than not having mustard. Most outrageous thing. I was driving a 2008 or 2009 Freestyle, and my friend Sasha and I were going to Dunkin' Donuts to get some coffee and catch up, as we hadn't seen each other in a while. On this particular model, there was a handlebar in the dashboard in front of the passenger's seat. I don't know why it was there, and to this day I still don't. My guess is it was an alternative oh crap handle. My friend Sasha had never seen anything like that before. Neither had I, and asked me what it was for. Sasha, Dave, what's this bar in the dashboard for? Me, oh, you've never seen a suicide bar before? Sasha, what? Me, yeah, that's a suicide bar. Sasha, what do you mean a suicide bar? What is it for? Me, Well, it's pressure censored, kind of like an airbag. If we get into a really bad accident, one bad enough that you should be dead, but somehow manage to survive, the bar releases and launches into your skull, killing you immediately. It's a preventative feature to keep you from being in excruciating pain in really bad accident. Sasha, oh my god, you serious? Me, yes. Sasha, oh my god. Dave, don't get in any accidents, please. I don't want to die. Drive safely and carefully please. Me, I'll drive as safely as I can. Sasha, but I can't guarantee other drivers won't cause an accident. At this point she was really freaking out and just wanted this drive to Dunkin' Donuts to be over. After about 4-5 minutes of her freaking out, and me pretending to try and comfort her, and keep her cool, I just lost it. The hardest, loudest, deepest laugh from the belly that I could muster just burst out of me. I was in tears. I was howling. My sides were splitting. It was then that she realized I was freaking with her, and she started hitting me and yelling at me with things like, Dave, you're such a freaking butthole. How could you do something like that? I hate you. You're a jerk the rest of the drive there. Then she hit you on the side of the head. You went unconscious. The car crashed. She died but you lived. That's my ending. Emma Watson came to visit our school freshman year. We convinced one of our frequently blackout and extremely self-assured friends, who had early made bets with multiple friends and family members that he would hook up with her. That he did in fact hook up with her. We even paid off the bets to convince him it was true. Best part about it was we told him she had given him her number on a piece of paper. He spent a week tearing apart his bedroom looking for that thing. It wasn't until 5 months later when our tabloid newspaper published the hilarity that he found out we'd been fricking with him. That little German living in the door of the car rolled the windows up and down or unlocked the door when you push the button. My cousins had never seen power windows before. PFFFT. Everybody knows they're Italians. I once convinced a girl that there are fish called the mew fish, because that's the sound it makes, that crawls onto the beach every night to eat all the grass. There's no grass on the beach, you say? Well, of course not. That's because the mew fish eats it. And there's the time I met some Americans on the train who asked me if we had courtrooms. I told them no, we still rule by the sword. I had to explain that wasn't true afterwards. I made my drunk friend believe that the flowers that stood on the table were special cure hangovers flowers. I convinced him that if he ate some of them, he wouldn't get hangovers the next day. He ate quite a few, complaining about the taste. Seriously though, you should understand lots of flowers are toxic to humans. It's kinda silly nowadays, but long ago this chick I knew needed a new transmission for her car. She was asking me what she needed, etc. I convinced her that the name of the transmission was Bumble Snort. I had her call the Ford place and ask how much a Bumble Snort transmission cost. I could hear the guy laughing over the phone. She was not impressed, BTW. It was Halloween, and my friend and I were dressed up as reporters. We had a microphone that wasn't plugged in, but had a channel branded Cube on it, and a fairly professional looking camera for the time, Sony VX2000. We went walking around Greek Row at University of Washington, going into random parties. Drunk girls dressed as would actually believe we were reporters and allow us to interview them, and then would pull Girls Gone Wild type crap. Every time I try and visualize this, you, random redditor I don't know, have a full-on Ron Burgundy mustache. I'm personally responsible for a very widespread rumor, to wit, that the turkey legs available at the local Renaissance Festival are actually made of emu. There is, of course, zero truth to that. It isn't even plausible, as emu legs are nothing like turkey legs. However, I've had the rumor repeated back to me or simply in my presence dozens and dozens of times with complete sincerity over the last decade. You bastard, I cook those turkey legs. I somehow tricked a girl into thinking Bill Cosby died on the set of a commercial in a freak accident. The story was they were filming a Jell-O ad with Cosby riding a horse around a big vat of Jell-O and the horse broke its leg and fell in. Cosby drowned suffocated while they were rescuing the horse. I was just kidding around, but the girl ended up believing it for a few days. I convinced my mate that it's called a Magnum of champagne because the internal pressure is so high that when the cork comes out it has the same force as a bullet out of a Magnum pistol. True story. You kids and your technology. When we were little, we had a locked trunk and I convinced my sister she was adopted and the adoption certificate was in there and our parents didn't want her to know. That's why it was always locked. There was a circus that would periodically come to town and set up in the arena that was next to my elementary school. Our friend and I were watching them go through their preparations one day at recess, and I decided to tell him that a tiger escaped the previous year and killed a kid. He didn't believe me at first, but I wove enough true stuff into the story. The way the chain link fence bulges inward towards us just so. The fact that the tigers over there have a far more substantial and new looking holding pen than even other comparably dangerous animals, etc. That he eventually got scared and ran off. Never did tell him the truth, and I sometimes wonder if there were any consequences. I convinced a whole fuckload of people that zombie Jesus would be coming back for them tomorrow to take them to a magical land in the sky. A bunch of them sold their houses, quit their jobs, even bought ad space for it all across the country. Idiots. You did the same thing in 1994, bastard. I told my friend that I won a free MacBook Air on one of those free websites, and he believed me, as I told him about the UPS shipping information and how it looks to be the correct weight and size on the tracker. He shat bricks. The next day he tells me that he completed several of those websites in hopes of getting one. He still gets the spam. This isn't the most outrageous, but the most recent. I'm currently in Spain. When you approach an intersection, they generally have 2 small raised bumps to alert you, followed by another 3 just before the intersection. I told my buddy it was road braille, an EU disability rule to accommodate blind and visually impaired drivers. He didn't even question it. This is really dumb, but after repeating the story about 50 times my best friend believed that I have a cousin who spends every day sitting on the couch smoking a crack rock that's 5 feet in diameter. I don't even remember why that was a story, but by about the 40th telling, he was like, wait, so this is for real? I'd even act out how her stoned face would look, etc. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.